Humanity is going into a really dangerous direction when it comes to how technologies are affecting our lives. It was always clear to me that I need to be somebody that is in a position of power, both economic and influence, so that I can help make sure that those technologies are being used in the right way, where they enhance human life and not detract it. So for me in this current situation, that means the next fund is $100 million.
You had a great run like the last 7 years, where you basically went from
I was a college student still 7 years ago.
a college student, so probably from your parents'
Yeah.
bedroom. No, you had a good run, and now like you're in crypto, you're in VC and everything, and it's very calm in your industry right now. So this is kind of a phase to prepare for the next run. So let's talk about this. What's your mindset right now?
So I would say the chaos of the last year has subsided, and the way I would frame this current environment right now for both of my industries, meaning for crypto and VC, but honestly for most of the world right now, is what I would call the off season, right? Just like in sports, you have your league, you've got your games, your championship title, where everything is online. And then when that is over, you go into the off season. You know, an off season can mean different things for different people. For some people, that's going to kick back and relax. But for the ones that actually want to be champions, it's the time to dig deeper, right? To work on their mindsets, to work on their strategies, to work on their systems, to kind of like redevelop themselves as a human.
Okay, so you made this analogy with sports, and the first thing that I noticed is they know they want to win the championship.
Yeah.
So probably the first thing, you need to have a goal first. Like, what's your goal? What are you preparing for?
Well, it all aligns with my bigger life vision, and this is something I've been sharing for years, for years now. There's old videos where I talk about it, but essentially, I do believe that over the next 30 years or so, humanity is going into really dangerous direction when it comes to how technologies are affecting our day-to-day lives. And I think people are waking up to it more now with things like AI, right? And so since the beginning, it was always clear to me that I needed to be somebody that is in a position of power, both economic and influence, so that I can help make sure that those technologies are being used in the right way, where they enhance human life and not detract it, right? Now that all sounds like very abstract, right? I understand that, but kind of like chapter 1 for me is kind of done now, where I've hit certain financial goals, where I have a two-way fork, there's a fork in the road, right? Fork 1 is I could kind of kick back, do less, enjoy. Fork 2 is what does it take to take it to the next 10x level up, right? So for me in this current situation, that means the goal is the next fund is $100 million, right? It means that we're going to launch in the next, let's call it 3 years, maybe 1 or 2 more themes. That could be a longevity fund, that could be an AI fund, right? And expanding the entire Hartman Capital infrastructure.
Just to build a context, you say $100 million fund, but it's not out of thin air. How much did you raise the last 2 years?
Well, we manage about 30 million.
Okay, so what is it, like, you have more time right now because it's like calmer. What is it that you do to prepare for that so that you are ready whenever the market is ready?
So conceptually, there's really 3 categories that are at the heart of this overhaul I'm going through right now. 2 of them kind of personal, 1 of them is business related, but they all interact, right? So 1, which we went into in the last video, is longevity, health and fitness, right? That is something that during a season, right, when you're on the field, right, or in my world at the trading desk, right, it could be crazy long hours, it could be really hectic, a lot of like adrenaline, markets up, markets down, surprises, shocks, right? This is a great time to also not take the foot off the gas, but to make time for those things that you just cannot make time for when things are going a little bit more aggressive, right? So I think health, longevity, fitness is 1. The second one is mind, right? And that is not just, mindset and whatnot. Yes, I'm making more time for, some of the classics like I've got the good old one. I've read Meditations many times, but also Letters to a Stoic by Seneca. I've got a whole stack right now of like philosophy books, like especially the Stoics that I want to get more into. So mindset is 1, but beyond mindset, expanding your skill set, being super practical, right? Meaning looking back at how you performed in the last 2 or 3 years in your field, right? For you, it's content, it's video, it's all those things, right? Like, so it could be looking, hey, where are the spots where I've got blind spots where I'm not the best? For me, it's as an asset manager, right? And while I've done really good at certain investment styles, trading styles, there are also certain areas where I am more novice, and I'm fully aware of that, than some of my counterparts, right? And so, for example, for me, right now, I'm doing a deep dive on derivatives, right? Like I'm fully familiar with like a lot of option strategies, iron butterflies, condors, credit spreads, all that stuff, right? But to really operate on like kind of like a mastery level, right, takes more. And so I've got like 1,000 pages, not 1,000, I think that's 3,000 pages of books, again, some of the classics I've got over here, options, futures, and other derivatives, options, pricing, volatility. This is supposed to be like the Godfather book of options. Got another one over here. But anyway, diving deep into the material that I will call back upon, right, when I'm back on the field, right? Because right now it's about expanding your skill set. It's all about, figuring out the next systems, which we'll get to in the next part, like part 3, because what you learn now will be your muscle memory when you're actually back out executing. Because guess what, like in a bull market, I will not have time to read 2,000-page books. In a bull market, I won't have that much time to, tinker with supplements and, like taking 20 minutes for a sauna and things like that, right? Like those are nice to haves, but those are not things I will do in a bull market, right? The third part is systems and operational structures. Again, in a bull market when things are hotter, there were times when I was hiring like one person a month essentially, right? Do I have that much time to create, employee handbooks or like, figure out like employee benefits and all kinds of like more nuanced things, right? Probably not, right? Same way, that's purely operational, but then also on the strategy side. Like in a bull market, we will have strategies and we will use them every single day. And we will use every minute to find opportunities that use those strategies. But now I have time to, where things are kind of slower and say, hey, what would have been the strategies in the last bull market that would have made us the most amount of money? Like if we could rewind time, what would we have done differently? Well, guess what? Let's do that now. Let's set up the machine now, so to say, so that when the shot goes off, when things start again, right, we're fully optimized so we can take advantage of all the things that we let go last time.
Let's go into the first of those 3 buckets,
Yeah.
health and fitness.
I know, before I nerd out too much.
What is going on there? Like what are you doing now differently? What are you doing? What are you trying to do?
I mean, we touched some of those things in the last video, so I don't want to rehash too much, but the core idea is that like I did an entire 180 shift when it comes to longevity. And longevity to me, it's all about that I can live to 120, 250, whatever, live as long as I can. Why? Because by the time I'm 50, by the time I'm 60, technology, medicine is so much further where life expectancy might push even longer, right? So that's one. But secondly, I want to be the best I can possibly be right now, this moment. And that means my energy, my focus, how I can use my brain, right? And also like out in the world, right? Like that I just like feel more vital, because there's been times in the bull market when I was like wearing myself down, maybe 4 hours of sleep a night, 5 hours of sleep a night, and just feel like shit and like it's a miserable existence, right? And so now I'm trying to maximize it. What does it entail? I think one of the most important fix for me was like fixing sleep. Mm-hmm. And when I say fixing sleep, there's actually a lot that goes into it, right? That means I cut out all stimulants because stimulants mess with your sleep. That means no alcohol, no coffee, no Adderall, none of that stuff, right? And secondly, like completely blacked out my room, right? Blackout curtains, every single light unbuttoned. I put the room to 65 degrees Fahrenheit. It's pretty much a cryo chamber, and it's freezing. I also bought an 8 sleep where I make it like minus 10 degrees on. So like there's like a temperature dial, and I put it all the way super cold. So pretty much my body's like in a freezing state, which is ideal, where like you get the best regeneration. Lots of other stuff. But essentially like that has helped me improve my sleep numbers so much, because I track with Aura, that my sleep efficiency has gone up, my REM sleep has gone up, deep sleep, everything. And that, as somebody that like disrespected sleep for his entire life, it makes a huge difference, because that is probably the number one of how your brain works the next day.
Yeah.
Because you do all the healing, all the regeneration during those hours. Second part, I would say, is somewhere tied between exercise. I would say nutrition first. I'm somebody as an entrepreneur. I lived off Uber Eats for the last 2 years. I have not stepped inside a grocery store in the last 2 years. Damn. Right? So I would usually get Uber Eats delivered once a day, twice a day. And then I deployed all my discipline to work. I didn't deploy it there. So I would have like, pad thai. I would have Chinese. I would have like just not the healthiest stuff, right? And so like when you live off that, well, your entire body is made of what you eat, right? Your gut microbiome, all your cells, everything. So naturally, like that affects your energy levels too. So I've changed that completely to where I cut out any processed food. It's all organic, single ingredients.
Do you go grocery shopping now or do you order?
I get my groceries delivered.
Okay.
So I use Amazon Fresh that way, at least, what's it called? Like I don't do any impulse buys, right? Like, because when you go to the store, you're like, oh, well, that looks nice. Let me get that.
How much do you, we don't need to put that in if you don't want to, but how much do you spend on health a month at the moment?
How much do I spend on health a month? My guess is I'm spending $50 a day on supplements. So that's about $1,500 a month. There's a couple one-time purchases. Like I got panels for red light therapy. I've got this device that trains your vagus nerve to improve your heart rate variability. 8 Sleep costs some money, Oura Ring costs some money. So that in terms of one-time purchases, you can probably get away with $10,000. Okay. $3,000 for red light, $3,000 for 8 Sleep. And then diet. The honest truth is that I think I spend less on my diet today than I did before. Why? Because Uber Eats is expensive.
Yeah.
Right?
Especially if you get it delivered.
Yeah. So like delivered Uber Eats is more expensive than having very nice, healthy, organic groceries delivered to your house every day. What's called, like, I would argue that health, other than rent, is probably my biggest expenditure.
What was the second bucket? So it's health? Mind. What's going in there? How does that fit into preparation to build a $100 million fund?
Something I see a lot of times is, like, especially with young men, right? A lot of young men, right, they're, to use like this very popular like nomenclature, you've got all the NPCs, right? Everybody's kind of like living this very like robotic life. You're just going about your actions, just, you're kind of existing, but you don't really have a life, right? And then young kids, myself included, right, back then, right, you discover some self-development, right? For me back then, I was working in a warehouse, I would listen like to Tony Robbins, Unleash the Power Within, or that was a seminar, and then also like his book, Awaken the Giant Within, stuff like that, right? And then I would read what's called Napoleon Hill.
To Think and Grow
Think and Grow Rich, right? That's the basic stuff that you start with, right? And so a lot of young men, right, they start down this self-development journey, and honestly, if you stick with it, I very genuinely think that you'll make it, right? Because that's across all my friends that have made it in business, right? They all had very humble beginnings. They all started with just working on themselves, reading books, improving their habits, like going to the gym and so forth. And over time, you've developed the habits, you have the discipline, you make it, right? Now, the catch is that you go through this, you're here, you go through the self-development journey, you grow, and now all of a sudden you start having results, right? It's also delayed, right? You go through the growth, so you go through the learning, and then you have the growth. Now, then you have the growth, and now you're just an operator. You're just executing.
Yes.
And so what happened with me, like I see with almost everybody, is that after you go through the growth, you're so busy now, like running your business, dealing with clients, dealing with like the product that you offer, so in my case, investment, right? That you stop doing the things that help you get there, right? You stop reading. There's been times when like for months at a time, I don't read a single book. Why? Because I'm so deep in my material, which is important, which is good too, because like, again, there's the off season where you do that stuff, and there's the season where you'll learn through practice. Like I've learned so much just through doing my job that a book could never teach me, so that's important too. But then there does come a time when you maybe exhaust what you can learn from the field because you're stuck on this field and you need to get to that field. And how do you get to that field? By filling in the blanks from other sources, right? And so now I'm essentially like rediscovering all the good habits that I had back then, right? Going to the gym again, 5 times a week. Reading books again, right? But this time the books are more high grade, right? I'm not reading Think and Grow Rich, which is like super, super basic. Now, again, I'm reading books, again, like deep derivative stuff, or I've even got like contract law books they teach in law school. Why? Because like I think understanding contract law better is super valuable for when it comes to negotiations on startup investing. And like I got another book coming in for mergers and acquisitions, essentially graduate level mergers and acquisitions training. Why? Because the one way you make money as a VC is through the exit, right? And so like knowing more about that comes in very handy, particularly when I'm a fund 1 VC, meaning I haven't had mergers and acquisitions yet, right? So I am learning through 2 companies that are going through the process right now, but I can get myself a little bit of a head start by reading up on it, right? So reading is one angle, and also like the next part of it will be mentors, right? Like finding, and again, mentor sometimes sounds very, what's the word, cliche,
Yeah.
you know, because like people like Tai Lopez just like made it sound like such a cringy
Be a
thing.
mentor.
But you know, for you to find the right mentor, you also have to learn the things that are publicly available first. Why? Because otherwise you're wasting his time, right? If you ask him a question, he says, if you read this book, you would know it, you wasted his time, right? So essentially, I want to upgrade myself first and then find the next level. Meaning, if I want to grow a $100 million fund, I need new mentors that have run $1 billion funds before.
Who do you have in mind?
I don't want to tell everything. So there's some, you know, there's some things where sometimes people say like, don't announce your goals, just do them.
Yeah.
I think especially with the big ones.